What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to another episode of Ben Builds with Joe. We are back on the bench with our 1/48 scale Airfix Spitfire FR Mk.XIV. Today we're going to go ahead and push forward a little bit more and try to get some of the more fidgety parts installed. I also want to go ahead and get some Stalin-Reds primer and overcoat the entire model, so that should be how we end today's episode. Let's go ahead and move over here first off to the engine covers. There are these long, almost D-profile shaped bulges that we glue onto the top of the engine cowling. But it looks like these actually just drop right into place on top of the fuselage. It shouldn't be too difficult to get in there, but I want to make sure that all the edges are nice and smooth, that there isn't any sort of flash hanging off there that might keep this from setting down inside of those openings. Really, honestly though, they look pretty decent. From what I have read, these are fairly accurate in shape. I know some of them aren't quite accurate, but these are supposed to be pretty good. Going ahead and dropping them in place, looks like they fit perfectly fine. A little bit of a gap here and there, but I think we should be okay to drop a little bit of Mr. Surfacer 500 in there. That should go ahead and take care of that. So let's go ahead and jump into a time lapse. We're going to work on installing parts like the radiator flaps, the engine covers, of course, we're working on now, the guns. We need to get those guns in place, push forward and see how much we can get done. Alright everybody, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the armament. Now, the Mk.XIV, this particular version, actually has two 20mm cannons and then two 50 cal machine guns inboard of those 20s. Now here on the kit, we have to go ahead and install the longer portion of the 20s, and then there's a little tiny hollowed out nub that we glue down for the 50 cal. Now, I'm not really that excited about the fit on these. Also, the gun profiles for the longer 20mm, they don't look quite right. They don't really kind of match up what I've seen in pictures. Maybe I just don't have them positioned correctly, I don't know. Also, the location that we actually glue these into, the locating tab, just either isn't big enough or it's not deep enough. It just doesn't feel like it's a very positive fit. Same thing goes though for the tiny 50 cal nubs as well. Those don't really want to go in where they're supposed to. Plus, since the part is so small, trying to go ahead and clean it up in there can really be difficult, especially if you have larger fingers. It can be a little challenging. We have to go ahead and do some sanding, make sure that we have everything kind of fared in and nicely smoothed out. It won't be too bad. That's the one place I think we could actually go for maybe like a resin update on those guns. I think that'd be a really good idea. Now on the back of the fuselage, I have noticed that there is this triangular piece of plastic that's molded into the side of the fuselage, right there by the rudder. Now I'm pretty sure that this is some form of rudder actuator. Because it's all one molded in piece, it doesn't look that great. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and remove this plastic part and I'm going to replace it with an actual piece of wire. I'm really hoping that that makes it look a little bit nicer, plus it'll give it some 3D effect, and plus it's kind of fun to, do some scratch building, and this is kind of like scratch building. So we're going to go ahead and slice off the plastic part, then we'll go ahead and attach the rudder and we'll see where it connects. Now when we install the rudder, you can see there's a little bit of a triangle that sticks down right at the very base on the left-hand side of that rudder. That's, I believe, where the actuator is going to go ahead and connect. All we need is a very tiny little piece of wire. I'm guessing no more than maybe 3mm long, if that even. Might even be a little bit less. So we're going to go ahead and use some basic 0.3mm wire, glue that right on inside, and that should be good enough. So this particular aircraft actually comes with two different rudders. We've decided to go ahead and use the rudder that was designed for paint scheme A. Now we'll be changing it up and doing something a little bit different with the color scheme and the decals, but I think I'm going to go ahead and just stick with everything that they want for version A. That's going to give me a nice bit of consistency, and I think that's going to be okay. So with the rudder glued in, now we know exactly how long we need that wire. So we're going to cut a little scrap of wire and glue that right in there. This is actually coming together really, really well. Only issue I've had so far with those guns. Everything else has dropped right into place. Give this a few minutes to tack up, and then let's go ahead and tackle that wire. Now for our wire, we're not going to be using any sort of solder. That's just too soft. So we're going to go ahead and use some straight 0.3mm wire. We'll dip it in a little bit of super glue here, just drop it right into place, and hopefully that's all we're going to need. And there we go. It is in place, and I like the look of it. I think it adds a little bit of character to it. I'm not sure if it's 100% correct, but I think I'm happy with it. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave it here, let it cure up, and then move on to some other areas. So let's go ahead and jump back into a time lapse, guys. We're going to go ahead and start cleaning up all these different areas that we installed, like the guns, 20mm, and the 50 cal. We're going to go ahead and start rescribing a couple of areas, install some of the windows. We got to get the windscreen in there, also install the gun sight, get everything looking a little bit closer, get back into that time lapse, see what we can do. All right, everybody, we are back, and as you can see, we have our Spitfire Mk.XIV all nicely primed with Stynylrez Gray Primer. The nice thing about using primer is that it will highlight all of your mistakes. A little frustrating, but it's a really good way to go ahead and tell if you've gotten all of your seams taken care of. Of course, we went ahead and airbrushed a couple of the other areas too, like these landing gear bay doors right here. These are done. We also worked a little bit on the front propeller, that massive 5-bladed propeller. That's all nicely sanded down and primered. So that's looking really good. It's going to be a black color, and then with some decals on it, it's going to look pretty awesome. We also went ahead and overcoated the Canopy Frames with the interior RAF green. We did that also on the front windscreen, and that has actually been re-overcoated with primer. So we'll have to go ahead and prime this one as well to make sure we keep that nice green color perfectly safe. Of course, we're going to have to go ahead and fix up a couple of seams because, like I said, when you use primer, it definitely highlights any areas that need a little bit of extra attention. And there is a seam right here on the top of the cowling. Now, from my references, the front top of this cowling is all one piece. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a jeweler file, grab some sandpaper. We're going to sand down that seam, make sure it's nice and invisible. And here we go. Went ahead and off camera, basically redid the seam here on top of the cowling. So I think this is going to be in a much better position. And when I go ahead and overcoat that with some more primer, you shouldn't really see any sort of seam. Though I did accidentally bring down one of the vents that was protruding up from the side of the cowling. So instead of having to worry about it, I've decided to go ahead and just take it completely off, and we're going to replace it with a plastic part off of our Su-15 with a little bit of modification. Now, this is one of those rear vents that hangs on the back of the Su-15's tail cone. I've actually taken one of these, and I'm actually going to slice off the bulk of it. Then we're going to cut that in half, and we're going to use the back part of it as somewhat of a vent. Now, of course, we're going to have to go ahead and glue that down, and what better way to do that than to use a little bit of extra thin Tamiya cement. Just one little dot right where the scoop's supposed to go, and then we can just drop it clean down on top of that, and we should be looking all right. Now, this is a little bit different shape, but it's not that noticeable. I think it's going to be okay. Just drop it right down where it used to be, and I think that's going to replace what was there, and it's going to give a little bit of 3D interest and look a little bit more action-packed, I think. So we're good with that. Now we're going to go ahead and let that dry, let that cure, and then we'll be back with a little bit of sandpaper and clean it up. A little bit of sandpaper, like I said, we're going to smooth down all the rough edges, make sure that none of the glue has etched the plastic, make sure it's all nicely smooth, and then we're going to go ahead and re-prime over top of that. I also noticed, though, on the bottom of the aircraft, our carburetor intake, that actually had a little bit of a seam in it. So I've decided to go ahead and take that down, smooth it out, and then re-prime that as well, because I don't want any crazy seams that might detract from the overall aesthetic of the Spitfire. After this is all nicely smoothed out, we'll go ahead and apply our primer. So after a very nice coat of our Stynylrez primer over those couple of areas, I think it looks a whole lot better. I went ahead and also applied a little bit more primer on the wings and on the undersurface of the wings as well. I just wanted to make sure we had a nice primer coat. And honestly, it looks pretty decent. So I think we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. Next time we'll come back and we'll start doing some pre-shading and we'll get ourselves ready for camo. That's going to be fun, guys. But until our next episode, you know the drill. Go out there, get yourself some bench time, have some fun, build something cool. Make sure to drop by Joe's channel, check out what he's doing on his Spitfire. It's really coming along. And we'll see you back here on the next episode of Ben Builds with Joe. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.